going to bring some more games to PlayStation, yada, yada, yada. I think their big plan is to bring Steam to the Xbox and just open up the Xbox ecosystem to multiple stores. However, it's like we're just in this constant state of, turmoil and chaos. And it's just like, like what's going on? And then this just added more fuel to the fire of like, yeah, I'm on the ultimate tier, which is great. I like it. As long as I get games day and date, it's great, especially as having a family. It's awesome because there's just a whole bunch of games. I'm not having to worry about it.
The thing is, though, I'm just going to add in here. The thing is, though, like everyone's like, oh, Microsoft will eventually add Steam, which I know they plan to, they've got the GeForce Now. But right now, GeForce Now works okay because you can use a browser to kind of go around issues, because you can use an old browser to use an old version of GeForce Now. But the moment you start getting native apps of Steam, GeForce Now, and all that lot, there's a huge chance that not all of your library, but you will see a significant amount of your library become locked off when you're playing on the Xbox version. I'm not going to say this is guaranteed, but I can see a lot of companies pulling out, like, you cannot play that on that device. Like, expect the PlayStation games are on Steam. Expect the PlayStation versions on Steam to not be playable on your Xbox.
It's going to be interesting to see, because I think that's just going to open up a whole legal battle, because essentially, like, when you sold the game,
there's nothing wrong with it.
Well, I think it's going to open. I think there's going to be lawsuits. I don't know which way the lawsuits will go. I think it's going
to require Microsoft to reclassify the Xbox as a Windows device.
Yeah,
just to start that would and existing
that would be
systems.
Anyway.
Right, but then all of a sudden, like I think there would be real serious legal trouble if you said that you can play this game on PC, just not a PC that was manufactured with any kind of brand of that. Like all of a sudden, that in and of itself is just a consumer nightmare, and I think that's where I do not believe that will happen, just because it just seems like a pointless endeavor. At that point, Microsoft Xbox no longer exists, and now you're going to pick and choose which PCs outside of the hardware requirements, right? Like if your machine cannot run that game because it does not meet the minimum specs, then that makes sense.
That just becomes a licensing nightmare, right? Because now it's on the publishers to go, is that an Xbox PC, or is that and then they could start blacklisting like anybody just arbitrarily, and then so it's like, sorry, you bought a Lenovo? No, we don't support that anymore.
Lenovo hasn't paid our our fee, and it's like, I get that argument. I've heard that from other people from the Sony camp, Chile, before. I just think it actually opens up a worse bag of chips that. Like, maybe they do that for a short period, but then ultimately it just is like, what are y'all doing? Go ahead.
No, it will be permanent. You already see it with GeForce Now, where you cannot just put a game on GeForce Now that, even though they support Steam, Steam then has to get approval from the publisher, and then that publisher then has to approve it for GeForce Now.
I think that's going to also end in a lawsuit, because from a consumer perspective, I could go rent a machine you could apply that same logic to an internet cafe, because it's like you're renting a machine regardless of where it is physically or not. I do wonder if that will also at some point make its way into the court system from a consumer advocacy.
Right. I can play my Xbox games on Brian's Xbox.
Right.
If my house unfortunately burns down today and Brian says, you know what, I got 5 kids, what's a couple more? Get in here. Get the dogs. It's fine.
We're
I show up. I can download my games to his Xbox and play it just fine. And so
but you're still asking Brian for permission to come to his house to download it.
But I'm not asking Blizzard for permission.
Yeah,
you're not asking Blizzard.
You're not having to seek out the publisher's approval
to play with my license. I don't own the game, but I do own my license on his hardware. Yeah. So, like, for me to say, yes, I approve GeForce Now to, and they approve me for having an account, and I approve them for like holding onto my login credentials or whatever for the purpose of me to use them. If there's some agreement between me and GeForce Now, sure. I'm going to pay them X dollars at whatever. Fine. I'm going to do Brian's dishes, whatever the agreement may be, that's fine. But Blizzard's not in the room. So for Blizzard to say, no, you don't own WoW, but you do pay for the ability to have access to it, but only on some hardware. All of this just makes me wish I'd gone to law school just so I know what the hell's going on. Because every one of these articles comes out and it's just like, it feels like it should be common sense, but it just gets so messy.
Well,
So fast.
the whole digital licensing landscape is, I think, intentionally confusing, but it's really frustrating just all across the board, because when you start doing DRM on everything, it's you suddenly go, oh well, I can't buy the game anymore because we lost the license to it, or the license to the property, you know. And so then it's like, well, now I can't even re-download it because it's not available anymore. Or hey, Steam didn't pay their fee, so they can't sell the game anymore. And it's a mess for consumers in the end, because you run the risk of literally your entire library could disappear arbitrarily, because you have no ownership. You just have permission to play the games you paid money for.
Permission that was grantable and revocable by some 600-page document that you had to rapidly scroll through to get to the game. So none of us read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, like those experts that we were talking about earlier that are supposed to be looking out for the consumers could, maybe draft up some legislation that would require those terms of service to be, layman's terms.
Well, I do think readable. AI might actually kind of more or less assist with that, where it's just like, all right, give me an AI, like give me just the summary of the key points of what I'm agreeing to, and who knows, people will still most likely scroll past even that when that happens. But
it'd be better if gaming had a responsible consumer advocacy group that was formed to do more than throw a letter on a box, because what they could have done is they could have written a standard terms of service for live service games or games that are not going to receive live service, and there could have just been these two standard licensing agreements, and every few years when those update, it affects all games, but they're all the same agreement, because that's how like real estate works, is that you have these real estate groups that come in and set standardized contracts. That's how architecture works, is you have an architecture related group that comes in and sets standardized contracts. And it doesn't mean there can't be specific little addendums. And maybe that just gets muddy because it's international. But like, at least within the US, why are we not on a standardized agreement? Because that happens in a ton of other spaces.
The ESRB actually, though, isn't a consumer advocacy group. They're a publisher developer. Like, that's who they work for. That's how they get their funding. And so I agree. I think one of the things that gaming could have benefited from the long run is having that lobby group of just like, okay, here's what represents the gamer, the consumer's interests, and just having a seat at the table. Because otherwise, it's just, you just get steamrolled, and it's like, all right. And then the thing is that within gaming, you see kind of the addictive mindset, the tribal mindset, that it's like, it's hard to get gamers to really rally behind anything. It does happen, but it is so rare that it's like, people, because you'll see the people come in saying microtransactions, all we have to do is just boycott them and they'll go away. It's like, well, good luck to you, because clearly, like, we have been boycotting the microtransactions, and their profits have only gotten up.
Call of Duty boycott groups on Steam, where everybody joins the group, and we're not going to buy Call of Duty, and then day and date, 90% of those players are playing Call of Duty. And you
can't boycott everything.